Hello and welcome to Geeky Guys. If you're into geeky things, we're the guys for you. Welcome to the videos today, guys. Whether you're here for the first time or you're here again. Just a quick note before we get into the video for today. If you go onto the Patreon site in the next couple of days, next couple of weeks, there's a couple of exclusive videos that I'm putting up there for patrons. So if you would like to become a patron, now's the best time to do so. You're going to get more exclusive videos per week and per month and whatnot. So go and check that out. As always, all links are in the description. Today we're getting into our look at the set of Strixhaven, and today we're having a look at the red and the white cards. Now we're not looking at the multicolored cards that are in red and white. We are just looking at red and white individually, and I've sort of cut down the list quite a bit in looking at this set, and I'm going to start doing this from sets going on here forth, because I just find that a lot of the cards, when we start talking about them, we just really like splitting hairs where we're looking at these cards and with, this is a set review, and it's like, well, a lot of these cards just don't fit into this EDH format, or if they do, they're in a very small niche. Like last video, I think it was, that I was talking about some of the Kaldheim cards. I talked about literally every mythic and every rare from the set, and a couple of the commons and uncommons. Like, some of those commons and uncommons were very relevant, I think, but some of the mythics and even some of the rares weren't very relevant at all. They're just mythics and they're just rares. They're built for standard, draft, modern, whatever purposes, pioneer, blah blah blah, whatever. They're meant for those formats. They're not meant for our format. They're just not going to fit in. They're not powerful enough. They don't do enough for our format. A hasty 6/6 for 4 doesn't really do enough. Yeah, sure, it's going to get in some beat damage, but again, that's sort of the thing that I'm talking about here. That sort of an effect just isn't powerful enough for our format. You've really got to find, game-winning sort of things, or things that are just inherently good for free sort of synergies and whatnot. So, but anyway, after just discussing that slight disclaimer there, guys, we'll get right into the cards for today. And first up, we're looking at some of the white cards. First off is Devastating Mastery. This, mono white sorcery, basically, for the most part, I think. But there could be something to this in its alternate cost. We'll have a look at that in just a second. So it's 2 double white and double white, so quadruple white in the end. So basically, the main effect of this card is destroy all non-land permanents. So, just a huge board wipe like this. This is fairly costed for what it's, worth. Yeah, sure, you're sort of shoehorned maybe into being mono white, like I said, but if you cast it for its alternate cost, because it says you may pay 2 and double white rather than pay this spell's mana cost. But if you paid that cost this way, then an opponent chooses up to 2 non-land permanents they control, returns them to their hand. So, this is a card that's really good because you're getting rid of all of the stuff. So when you have a board wipe like this, it's fairly costed for, its, higher value or traditional value, whatever you want to say. Not its ultimate casting cost, essentially. But that's a fair cost for board wipes that do roughly the same thing. Again, you could just play this in mono white and just slam it, and it it's just another, board wipe that's pretty good that's in your colours. But for 4 mana, I actually think this is quite good as well. Even if, you cast it and one of your opponents gets 2 of their non-land permanents back to their hand, like, you just be like, okay, I'm going to say, hey, Alan or whoever that's across the table from me, and basically in last place, hey, you know what? Pick up those 2 permanents there that you've got. I'm going to wrap the board, but I'm mainly wrapping the board to deal with Jake over here or whatever, whoever, Lily or whoever, so that I can actually do some stuff to them because they're just going crazy and going off. And 4 mana to destroy all non-land permanents except for maybe, bouncing to the controller's hand. Like, that's absurdly good. Even that downside, again, you can use this slightly politically to a degree. So you get to choose the opponent, I believe, in this exchange as well. So, again, you can kind of be like, well, that person over there is really far ahead, and the other 2 opponents I don't really care about. They have some stuff, but, for the most part, it doesn't matter. So that happens a lot. Or maybe there's 2 opponents that you've maybe got to kind of deal with one of them, but the other one you've just really got to deal with, and then there's that other player that, again, just like is sitting there, just like hasn't hit their 3rd land drop or 4th land drop or whatever it is, or just hasn't got out to the insane start that the others have or whatever, hasn't ramped every single other turn or whatever it is, and just gotten out their beaters, and whatnot. Or just their combo pieces or whatever it is, like, again, or their setup or whatnot. So it's just really good, People talk about how good Wrath of God and Austere Command and a couple of other cards like that are, especially like the 4 mana Wraths. But this is a 4 mana Wrath that just gets rid of everything. I mean, again, of course, yes, if you've got your stuff on the board, you're going to lose your stuff. You can't choose yourself to bounce any of your stuff back. But again, if you really need that Wrath just to destroy everything, get rid of all the things, I think it's definitely worth it. Next is Leonin Light Scribe, a 2 mana 2/2. Not too impressive, but whenever it has some Magecraft ability. Whenever you cast a copy of an instant or sorcerer spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. I don't think it's the best, but I think it's okay, and I'm not sure exactly where you can sort of put this. I'm not sure that there's that many white-based Spellslinger decks and whatnot, but, it does pump your entire team, so I think that is good, and I think it is worth considering if you are in maybe a Boros sort of style Spellslinger deck or whatnot. Maybe this can find some space in some decks. I think it's probably good enough to find some space, just to consider it. So yeah, but anyway. And next, Semester's End. This is like Ghostly Flicker, I think it is, or whatever it is. Basically, 4 mana actually, instant. Exile any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers you control at the beginning of the next instant. Return each of them to the battlefield under your control. Each of them enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter if it's a creature and an additional loyalty counter if it's a planeswalker. So, it's definitely not Ghostly Flicker because I think that's 1 target creature, but it's Eerie Interlude, sort of, I guess, but it also bounces your planeswalkers, but also brings your stuff back with +1/+1 counters or an extra loyalty counter. So I think this is certainly good. It saves your permanents, your creatures, your planeswalkers at least, from wraths, sometimes from spot removal, whatnot, things like that, or just, you're able to reuse them. You're just like, I have activated my planeswalkers, so, you know, I've already got the value out of them, but they're probably going to die next turn. I really want to get some more value out of them. So I'll just flicker them away, bring them back in, you know, reactivate them, get more value out of them, hopefully get to where I need to be so that I can actually, you know, do what I need to do. Interestingly, it also sort of untaps your creatures, so it's a way of giving them vigilance. It also gives them that +1/+1 counter, so that's kind of good. It gives you more power in theory, hopefully at least, out of it. So, you know, I think it can find some space in our format. I don't know whether you've got to care about both creatures and planeswalkers, because that's kind of interesting. Actually, I was talking the other day about Milara and Luca, the planeswalker on the back of the dog from this set, in our Legends video, and you know, this could go into a deck like that, you know, where you do have a bunch of creatures, maybe, and you maybe also have a bunch of planeswalkers, you know, Boros planeswalkers, these mono-white planeswalkers, so maybe this goes in a mono-white planeswalkers deck that also cares about some creatures that have +1 counters, I don't know. So, you know, or at least it might just go in Atraxa, so you never know, that's a good place for it to go. Help protect your Atraxa, which everyone wants to target. Helps protect all your planeswalkers, which everyone wants to destroy. So, you know, that's there as well. Next up, Strict Protector. 2 mana, 1/3, flyer. Whenever a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability to trigger, counter that ability unless its control pays 2. So this is any permanent. Now this is slightly more of the spiky card, I'm thinking, to my, you know, extent, but it is, you know, good effect to a degree that, you know, you might want to use if you find that, you know, someone's just running like Valakut the Malkin Pinnacle and things like this, because it does slow it down, it does shut it down sometimes very easily. It can do a lot of work for you, so, you know, just just that taxing sort of effect, you know, and I don't love that sort of thing, but you know, things like that, you can still find lots of space to, you know, hose some effects like, you know, token generation and whatnot, which I'll be kind of sad about. But again, you know, those things that you might need to just protect yourself and whatnot. You know, you obviously want to put this in a deck where you're more focused on, you know, disruption, and you need to get to that late game. I would like to be a bit more proactive or whatnot, doing what I want to do, but I still think that there's people that would want to play this effect just to protect themselves, you know, when they need it. So I think that this can see some play. Right, we're going to move on to red now. White was pretty short, but, you know, hopefully I think red's got a bit more for us. First, Conspiracy Theorist, 2 mana, 2/2. Whenever Conspiracy Theorist attacks, we may pay a 1 and discard a card if we do draw a card. And whenever we discard one or more cards, non-land cards at least, we may exile it with one of them from our graveyard, and if we do, we can cast it this turn. So a lot of people have those Madness decks, Angie Falcon Wrath and whatnot, Chain of Nightmare Adept and a couple other decks that are discarding cards and whatnot. And, you know, reds is a looting color, so, you know, there's a lot of looting effects in this color, so you can just get value out of this. I think it's really good for those specific decks. I'm not sure where else you can fit it, but if you're just in these colors and you happen to have a lot of looting effects just to make your deck work, which is, you know, what a lot of red decks do, either that or exile based sort of stuff, then, you know, this can find good space for those decks that are, you know, more focused on looting and whatnot. perhaps reanimation, once again, or just casting them from different zones and whatnot to get benefits and whatnot. So this is a really good card. Definitely consider it for any decks that you have those looting sort of style effects going on. Just gives you extra value. When the attacking part, I don't think that's too relevant, but if you really need it and it's fairly early game, maybe it's okay, or maybe if the board's pretty clear, you can maybe get it in there sometimes, or just like the player who has literal nothing, you can maybe get in there. Again, just that extra, like, I'll tap this to essentially loot and, cast a spell, because I need more cards in my hand, so, or I need to loot more through my deck. Next is Crackle with Power. This is a big burn spell, so it deals 5 times X damage of up to X targets, and it's X X X, so triple X. Oh dear. And double red. So this mythic, you can target 3 players, for a lot of damage fairly quickly. This I was talking to somebody who explained this to me, and how you can basically kill 3 players very quickly with this sort of effect, and kill a lot of other stuff as well. So once you get up to a certain amount of mana, it just sort of starts going off. Of course, in the early parts, it's not quite as good, but once you start tipping the balance, it starts becoming really good. So you've really got to have a lot of mana with this. I was talking about the Is It Dragon the other day from this set, who makes treasures when he enters, and he wants you to tap your artifacts and whatnot to cast instant sorceries. This could be a really good instant or sorcery that goes into those sorts of decks, because you can make a lot of mana. Maybe also the Is It Pt1 commander, which wants you to sort of cast these big spells. This will certainly be a big spell when you can cast it right, and you'll just get extra damage out of your commander, so you can even cast it just for a little bit less, so that you can actually kill people a little bit easier with it, rather than having to spend so much mana on this, because you'll get that free 10 damage, hopefully, out of your commander, which will be really good. So if you're in these big mana red decks, or big mana decks that contain red, I think you want a card like this. It's a really good burn spell that can kill a whole bunch of stuff, can kill your opponent, and can win you the game. So I think it's got some legs to find some space. Next, Draconic Inversion, 2 and double red. It's sorcery. You cast a spell, you can exile an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard, and then it deals X damage to each non-dragon creature, where X is the exiled card's CMC or mana value. If a creature dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead, and then we exile this card. So that prevents that little bit of recurring sort of stuff, and that can hurt a little bit. But I don't know, Blasphemous Act is really good, but this is just a red deck burn spell for a dragon deck. Like if you're a dragon deck, and you have a whole bunch of instant sorceries that are fairly big. If you have Blasphemous Act in your graveyard that got milled there, or got discarded, or countered, or whatever earlier in the game, or just wasn't good, like again, you've got a lot of these looting effects, so you might have looted it away or whatnot, or had to discard it because of Turgid or something else. Who knows? You just top deck this, and you're just like, oh, okay, I'll exile my Blasphemous Act, and I'll do 13 damage or whatever, or 9 damage at least to all non-dragons. Look, my dragons survive, or whatever. So you want it in those dragon decks where you have some big instant sorceries, so that you can do a lot of damage to your opponent's creatures again, so you don't want to be playing this in a deck that's not caring about dragons, because otherwise you're just like, oh well, it's just a hard wrath then, and what am I doing with it? But then again, it could be good. And I don't think the exiling kills it. I think it's okay. I think it, just as another wrath if you need one. But then it's kind of like, how good is this wrath compared to the other wraths? But again, if you're dedicated dragons, I think you'd take this over almost any other card. Next, Ifrit Flame Painter. So 4 mana, 1/4 with double strike. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If the spell would be put in your graveyard, exiled instead. So basically, you get 2 instant and sorceries from your graveyard to cast because it has that double strike effect. So, just casting 2 instant and sorceries that are in your graveyard for quote-unquote free is pretty damn good. Now, its stats aren't amazing, but its stats aren't terrible either. So, I wouldn't be too upset to run this if I was in a big Spellslinger style deck. I think it can find some space in those decks. I don't think it's the best, again, because you've got to find ways to always get it in there if you want that value, rather than something like Dreadhorde Arcanist, I think it is, because it's when it attacks, basically you get a spell of cost equal to its power for free from your graveyard. So it's not as powerful. It does have to, quote unquote, get in there and actually survive and whatnot to a degree. But then again, yeah, sure. Even if it dies, maybe you don't care. I don't know, because then again, you're not actually getting in the damage, so I don't know. It's a bit weird to be like, oh, did I get in damage? Doesn't have trample, a bit weird. So yeah, you have to figure out where it's actually good, but I do think it would be okay in certain decks. And again, you can get in there sometimes with things like this. And if you can find ways to buff it and whatnot, or at least its toughness and whatnot, it'll be harder to block. And again, if you can find ways to give it evasion, like flying or trample, then I think it definitely goes up. Definitely if it has Death Touch as well, because then, First Strike Death Touch is really good, especially with trample as well. So those things are very powerful effects that you might want to run with this. Next, Fervent Mastery. So 3 and double red. This is another one of those cards that you can pay an ultimate cost to. So basically, this is a triple gamble. So you search your library for 3 cards, you put them in your hand, then shuffle, then you discard 3 cards at random. So it's triple in turn, of course, because you always discard the cards that you tutor for. But you can pay 2 and double red rather than paying its cost. And if you pay that cost, an opponent discards any number of cards, then draws that many cards. So you allow your opponent to go, oh, look, these 2 or 3 cards that are in my hand aren't good, I'll discard them and draw some cards. It really helps out people who are playing graveyard decks and whatnot sometimes and whatnot. Or it really helps, one player. But again, you can use that politically, or you can use it on the player that's sort of in last place, or you can use it on the player that you want to, have that political gain with, so that you can sort of go, oh, okay, I helped you out that, with that loot. So that you could actually hit your land drops or whatnot. So now, you'll help me out, won't you? Type thing. So again, you really want to care about that. I think the triple, gamble, basically, tutoring for 3 things for yourself, you wouldn't be too sad to pay, the extra mana for that. But, if you can get it for cheaper, would you give an opponent, the ability to discard some cards and draw some cards? I think you might, but again, I don't think in Commander that people will be too sad to pay full price for this. So I just think don't worry too much about that alternate cost. Sometimes it might come up, again, but and if somebody has Narset out or something like that, or whatnot, or Hull Breacher or whatever, they don't even get the cards, or if you have the Hull Breacher or the Narset, that's the best thing. Because again, you're kind of like, well, I'll just get 3 treasures or whatever it is if you discard, or I'll just draw 3 extra cards, or you won't draw any cards or whatnot. Those sorts of things. Then it even gets even better than that. So you've just got to watch if somebody offers this engagement to you when you play it, because that person will tutor some really good things and probably be able to untap and use them straight away. So don't forget that those terrible cards, do exist. So yeah, but definitely can see play. Next is Illuminate History. This is a sorcery. It's also a lesson, but we won't talk too much about that because it's not too relevant. So 4 mana, 2 and double red. Discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. If there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. So there's some cards that are sort of similar to this, the looting effect, but just discarding any number in regards to that at least, and then drawing extra. We were talking about the mono red guy, conspiracy theorist a moment ago, who likes you discarding cards, and red is a discarding color, as we've sort of said as well. This is okay for, red decks if you want to be discarding things and you get extra value out of discarding things. You also need that, card advantage, and just getting a free 2/3 or 3/2, 3/2 for free, basically, off of that, if you've got 7 cards, just fine, I think the main thing you want to do with this is, get card advantage, and again, if you've got those other looting effects or graveyard interaction effects, then you definitely want something like this. You want extra value out of these things. You don't just want these other things to be like, oh, well, I can't do anything with those cards, now I can never get them back, I can never reuse them. You want to be able to reuse them or get them back or do something else or shuffle your graveyard into your library and things like that, because you do want to be able to have access to those cards, unless they're all hands and you've just been completely flooded. But that's a different story, But anyway, I still think this has some good space. There's just one more card that I just really quickly want to talk about, which is Reteva Phoenix. This, I think, is a bit of a trap. Mainly because of Learn and Lessons and whatnot. Learn and Lessons really don't work very well in our format, so I just want to put a little bit of a red flag up against this creature in specifically, because it is very specific to Learns and Lessons and whatnot. Basically, Learns and Lessons, we saw one of the lessons. These cards, when you cast one of the lesson cards or one of the learn cards, they all say when you do something, you learn. You can tutor a card from your sideboard. There's no sideboards in Commander, so that's where all these cards are going to fit. They're not going to work in our format. So this is a very emblematic card of this. Do not get caught with this. You can cast these spells, and if they do something decent on their own, then sure, you can certainly think about using them, but don't rely on the other ability, because again, that ability, essentially, it does nothing. Sure, you can go into a playgroup and say, hey guys, look, I'm trying to build this janky learn lesson deck for EDH. Do you mind if I actually have a sideboard of 5 or 6 cards or whatever for my learn stuff or for my lesson stuff? And then just show everybody, basically what you've got in your quote unquote learn sideboard, and just be like, look, I've only got some stuff that draws me cards and whatnot, or that, pseudo ramps me or whatnot, or some pseudo removal and whatnot. There's nothing that busted in there. Certainly none of the cards that I've seen in the lesson area and whatnot. We were just talking about one of them. Are that broken, that bad, whatever. You wouldn't bat an eye at most of them. They're just fine. But again, you can't, for the most part, get those cards to your hand unless you've gone through the whole process of sort of talking to people and saying, hey, look, I'm just trying to build this janky deck because I opened all these learn lesson cards. So I wanted to play with them, and I just don't really play standard or modern or whatever. I'd rather play commander and whatnot or whatever. Or I just play kitchen table and everyone plays commander or whatever, Or I play just webcam games and everyone basically plays commander. So again, just remember how these cards actually interact in our format. Don't get caught by having, cards that you shouldn't have or have not at least discussed with your play group having in your deck, because I've seen so many people play Khan that tutors something from their something from the sideboard and instantly get Mycosynth Ladders, and then it's like, well, dude, you didn't actually tell anyone that you were playing Khan, and you didn't tell anyone that you were playing cards from your sideboard or whatever. So you really shouldn't have done this. That's not the way to play with people. You should ask people beforehand. You should make it clear, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. At least to some degree. I know that sort of ruins some strategies and whatnot. But again, you've got to be clear with these things. If you really want to play them, you've really got to find the right people that want to play against, Khan, plus I have Mycosynth in my quote-unquote sideboard or whatever. So yeah, but anyway, that's about it for this video. Very short in comparison to the other ones, because again, we're not going over the legendaries, we're not going over too many of the cards that I don't think are, really playable. There might be a few commons and uncommons that you might go, hey, this will work okay in this deck, but I'm mostly looking for synergy pieces that will go into most decks or whatnot. But anyway, let me know about cards that you think that I skipped over that certainly could find their way into our format. Let me know about all the cards that you're hyped for from Strixhaven. Write down there in the comments. Any other notes that you want to tell me, write them down there in the comments. Please remember that the success of channels like this is based on viewers like you, so please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing if you would like to support this content. You can also get social with us on our Discord and on our Facebook. If you would like to further support the channel, you can go onto our Patreon. All links are in the description. Thank you for your support. It really means a lot. I hope you have enjoyed this video here today. And if you have, I hope you will come back for another one. See you then.